It began as a hushed conversation behind Kensington Palace walls, one that aides tried to downplay and courtiers quickly silenced. But the look on Queen Camilla's face as she exited that private meeting said everything the palace couldn't. Something had changed. Someone had crossed a line. What was first dismissed as another routine disagreement soon became the most talked-about shift in royal circles. Because the last person still standing firmly in Camilla's corner had suddenly walked away and straight into Prince William's camp. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the whispers seemed impossible to believe. Royal households are built on loyalty, discretion, and carefully maintained alliances. People come and go, advisors retire, and priorities shift, but certain relationships inside the palace are considered untouchable. That is why the rumors spreading through royal circles cause such unease. According to palace insiders, a confidential meeting had taken place involving Prince William, several senior advisors, and a figure long regarded as one of Queen Camilla's most dependable supporters. No official statement followed, no explanation was offered. Yet within hours, people who had spent years navigating the complicated world of royal politics sensed that something significant had happened behind closed doors. The first clues were subtle. Conversations that once flowed freely suddenly became guarded. Communication patterns changed almost overnight. Individuals who had traditionally aligned themselves with Camilla's interests appeared noticeably cautious. Staff members who rarely paid attention to internal maneuvering began exchanging concerned glances and quiet observations. The atmosphere inside royal circles felt different, not chaotic, not dramatic, just different enough to make experienced observers pay attention. Those who understood palace dynamics knew that major shifts rarely arrive with announcements. They begin with silence. What made the situation even more remarkable was the identity of the person at the center of the speculation. This was not a casual supporter or temporary ally. For years, this individual had stood firmly beside Camilla during periods of criticism, controversy, and internal disagreement. When others questioned her decisions, this loyalist reportedly defended her position. When tensions emerged behind the scenes, they often acted as a stabilizing force. Their support had become so consistent that many believed the relationship was unbreakable. That assumption now appeared to be collapsing. As the days passed, the rumors only intensified. Palace insiders began quietly suggesting that Prince William had achieved something few thought possible. While much public attention remained focused on official duties and public appearances, William had allegedly been strengthening relationships behind the scenes, building trust among key figures responsible for the future direction of the monarchy. If the reports were true, the departure of Camilla's longtime defender was not an isolated event. It was a strategic breakthrough, a signal that loyalties inside the institution were beginning to shift toward the future king. For Camilla, the implications were impossible to ignore. Reports suggested that she appeared unsettled, as whispers continued to spread through royal circles. No public confrontation occurred. No dramatic dispute reached the headlines. Yet those closest to palace operations allegedly noticed a growing sense of uncertainty surrounding her position. Support that once seemed guaranteed no longer felt secure. Relationships that had been dependable for years suddenly appeared vulnerable. The confidence that comes from knowing trusted allies stand beside you was beginning to erode. Meanwhile, courtiers and royal observers quietly debated what this development might mean. Some believed it was simply one person making a personal choice. Others suspected something far bigger was unfolding. They pointed to William's growing influence, the changing priorities of the monarchy, and an institution increasingly focused on its future rather than its past. If one of Camilla's strongest defenders could change sides, what might happen next? Who else was reconsidering old loyalties? And how many conversations were taking place beyond public view? The questions multiplied faster than the answers. Yet one thing was becoming increasingly clear. This shocking defection was not an isolated incident born from a single disagreement. It carried the weight of something deeper, something that had been building quietly for years beneath the polished surface of royal unity. Every whispered conversation, every strained relationship, and every carefully hidden frustration seemed to point toward a larger story waiting to emerge. But this shocking defection did not happen overnight. It was the result of years of tension, frustration, and a growing divide hidden beneath the surface of royal unity. For years, whenever criticism surrounded Camilla, one influential figure remained unwavering. While others distanced themselves, this trusted insider continued defending her position, protecting her interests, and helping preserve her influence behind closed doors. The deeper palace insiders looked into the sudden defection. The more astonishing it seemed. This was not someone who had recently entered royal circles, or someone whose loyalty had ever been questioned. Their connection to the institution stretched back through years of service, negotiations, private discussions, and moments of crisis that never reached public attention. They had earned a reputation for discretion, patience, and reliability. More importantly, they had become closely associated with Camilla's inner network, a group that many believed would remain loyal no matter how dramatically the royal landscape changed. That assumption now appeared dangerously outdated. Those familiar with palace operations often described this figure as one of the few individuals capable of calming tensions when disagreements threatened to become larger conflicts. Whenever criticism intensified around Camilla, whether from commentators, royal observers, or whispers circulating behind closed doors, this loyalist reportedly stood firm. While others hesitated, they defended her decisions. While doubts emerged elsewhere, they encouraged patience and stability. Over time, their support became more than a professional relationship. It became part of the foundation that helped maintain Camilla's influence within an institution where trust is often more valuable than titles. That history made the recent shift feel almost unthinkable. Palace veterans who had watched alliances rise and fall over decades struggled to explain what had happened. Some pointed to changing circumstances. Others suggested deeper frustrations had been building for years. Whatever the reason, there was growing agreement on one point: this decision had not been made impulsively. Something significant had altered the calculations of a person once considered among Camilla's strongest defenders. Reports began resurfacing about earlier moments when the Loyalist allegedly intervened on Camilla's behalf. During periods of internal disagreement, they were said to have advocated for her position. When tensions emerged between competing royal interests, they often worked behind the scenes to limit damage and preserve relationships. Their efforts rarely attracted attention, yet insiders understood their importance. They helped maintain balance during difficult periods. They offered protection when criticism intensified. Most importantly, they represented continuity in a royal environment where uncertainty is often constant. Yet even as they continued supporting Camilla publicly, subtle signs of strain were reportedly beginning to emerge. Prince William's circle was expanding. New advisors were gaining influence. Conversations increasingly focused on the future rather than the past. The monarchy appeared to be entering a period of transition, and with that transition came difficult questions about priorities, leadership, and long-term direction. For individuals deeply invested in the institution, those questions became harder to ignore with each passing month. The tension was not necessarily personal. That was what made it so complicated. According to palace whispers, the growing divide centered on competing visions of what the monarchy needed to become. William's supporters emphasized stability, modernization, and preparation for future responsibilities. Others remained committed to established relationships and traditional power structures. The Loyalists found themselves standing directly between those two worlds. On one side stood years of trust, familiarity, and personal loyalty. On the other stood an increasingly influential future king whose authority seemed to grow stronger with every passing challenge. As royal priorities evolved, the pressure intensified. Decisions that once appeared straightforward became increasingly difficult. Every conversation carried additional weight. Every choice seemed connected to larger questions about succession, influence, and the institution's future. Those closest to the situation reportedly noticed a change in tone. The certainty that had once defined the Loyalist position appeared to be fading. Doubts emerged, questions multiplied, and the struggle between personal loyalty and institutional duty became impossible to avoid. By this stage, the story was no longer simply about one individual changing sides. It had become a reflection of a monarchy navigating a profound transition. The old structures remained in place, but the forces shaping the future were growing stronger every day. The Loyalists understood this reality perhaps better than anyone. They could see where power was moving, they could sense where influence was gathering, and they knew that eventually a choice would have to be made. As William's influence continued growing, the Loyalists found themselves caught between old alliances and a new royal reality that was becoming impossible to ignore. While public attention focused elsewhere, Prince William was steadily strengthening his position inside the institution. Every meeting, every appointment, and every relationship seemed to point toward a carefully planned future. As questions continued swirling around the Loyalists' future, another reality was becoming increasingly difficult for palace insiders to ignore. The story was no longer centered solely on Queen Camilla's shrinking circle of support. It was also about Prince William's remarkable rise inside the institution. While public conversations often focused on royal appearances, family tensions, and headline-grabbing developments, a quieter transformation had been unfolding behind the scenes. Piece by piece, relationship by relationship, William was building something that many within royal circles now viewed as both strategic and inevitable. Unlike dramatic power struggles that announced themselves loudly, William's approach appeared measured and deliberate. Those familiar with palace operations reportedly noticed that he spent years cultivating trust among senior advisors, experienced staff members, and influential figures responsible for maintaining the monarchy's daily functions. He was not seeking quick victories. He was establishing long-term confidence. Each successful collaboration strengthened his credibility. Each challenge he navigated reinforced the perception that he was preparing not only for future responsibilities, but for the enormous weight that would eventually accompany them. That growing confidence began creating noticeable shifts within the royal household. Advisors who once focused primarily on present concerns increasingly found themselves discussing the future. Conversations that had traditionally revolved around immediate issues gradually expanded to include long-term planning. William was becoming central to those discussions. Not because he demanded attention, but because many believed he represented continuity during a period of uncertainty. As the monarchy faced changing public expectations, evolving priorities, and complex internal dynamics, his steady presence offered reassurance to individuals concerned about what lay ahead. The contrast between William's approach and older palace methods became a frequent topic of quiet discussion. For decades, many royal decisions had been guided by tradition, precedent, and deeply established routines. William respected those traditions, but insiders claimed he also recognized the importance of adaptation. He reportedly encouraged more efficient communication, stronger coordination among teams, and a broader focus on unity within the institution. These efforts were not revolutionary. They were careful, practical, and designed to strengthen the monarchy rather than disrupt it. Yet their impact was becoming increasingly visible. As these changes unfolded, trust in William continued expanding across multiple levels of the royal household. Senior advisors reportedly appreciated his willingness to listen before acting. Staff members valued consistency in his approach. Individuals who worked closely with him began describing a leadership style focused less on authority and more on responsibility. That distinction mattered. In an institution built upon hierarchy, the ability to inspire confidence often carries more influence than formal power alone. For the Loyalist watching these developments, the implications were impossible to overlook. Every conversation seemed to reinforce the same conclusion. Every new alliance pointed in the same direction. The balance of influence inside the palace was gradually shifting, not through confrontation, not through public conflict, but through relationships built over time. The Loyalist could see respected advisors moving closer to William's vision. They could sense increasing confidence in his leadership. Most importantly, they could feel momentum gathering around a future that appeared increasingly certain. That realization created a growing internal conflict. Loyalty had shaped much of their professional identity for years. Standing beside Camilla during difficult periods had never been questioned. Yet the monarchy itself was changing. New priorities were emerging. Fresh alliances were forming. The institution was preparing for a future that seemed to revolve more and more around William's leadership. Remaining committed to old relationships was one thing. Ignoring the direction of the future was another. As weeks passed, the tension intensified. The Loyalists found themselves weighing personal bonds against institutional realities. Every discussion seemed to raise the same unspoken question. Where would the monarchy be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And who would be trusted to guide it through that journey? The answers were becoming increasingly clear, and with that clarity, came a choice that could no longer be postponed. Yet the real turning point came during a series of private discussions that would force a decision nobody expected. Behind closed doors, away from cameras and official statements, a conversation unfolded that insiders now describe as a defining moment in the palace's evolving power structure. By the time the Loyalists began questioning where their future truly belonged, the atmosphere inside royal circles had already changed. What had once been a quiet undercurrent of speculation was becoming a serious discussion among some of the institution's most influential figures. Reports suggested that a series of confidential meetings had taken place involving Prince William, senior staff members, and trusted advisors, who rarely found themselves at the center of public attention. No official details emerged. No records were released. Yet the significance of these discussions quickly became the subject of intense palace speculation. According to insiders, these conversations were different from ordinary strategic meetings. They were not focused on schedules, ceremonial duties, or routine matters. Instead, they centered on something far more important: the future direction of the monarchy itself. As the institution faced mounting challenges, shifting public expectations, and growing pressure to remain relevant in a rapidly changing world, senior figures reportedly felt compelled to confront difficult questions. What kind of monarchy would emerge in the years ahead? Which values would guide it? And who could be trusted to help shape that future? For the Loyalist, those questions carried enormous weight. They had spent years operating within established structures, supporting familiar relationships, and helping preserve stability during periods of uncertainty. Yet as these discussions unfolded, they reportedly found themselves hearing perspectives that could no longer be dismissed. Advisors spoke about continuity. They spoke about preparation. They spoke about the importance of reducing internal divisions before they could become larger problems. Most importantly, they spoke about the need for unity at a time when competing loyalties threatened to create fractures within the institution. That was where the conversation reportedly became uncomfortable. For years, many figures inside royal circles had managed to balance personal relationships with professional responsibilities. But according to palace whispers, the meetings forced participants to examine whether that balance could continue. The monarchy was entering a new chapter. The future king was assuming a larger role. Decisions that once seemed distant were suddenly becoming immediate concerns. Remaining neutral, once considered a reasonable option, was beginning to appear increasingly unsustainable. As the discussions continued, the Loyalists reportedly found themselves confronting difficult truths. Their support for Camilla had never been rooted in ambition or political maneuvering. It had been based on trust, familiarity, and years of shared experience. Yet loyalty alone could not answer every question. The institution's future demanded broader considerations. It required looking beyond individual relationships and evaluating what would best serve the monarchy in the years ahead. That realization reportedly created an emotional conflict unlike anything they had previously experienced. The pressure intensified with every conversation. Advisors described emerging challenges. Senior figures discussed long-term priorities. Concerns about internal divisions surfaced repeatedly. Some reportedly warned that uncertainty within the institution could create unnecessary complications at a time when stability was more important than ever. Others emphasized the need for clear leadership and unified support structures moving forward. Again and again, the same theme emerged. The future could not be built on hesitation. For the Loyalist, the implications became impossible to escape. They were no longer simply choosing between two individuals. They were choosing between competing visions of where the monarchy was headed. One path was familiar and deeply personal. The other represented change, preparation, and an increasingly clear future under William's leadership. Every meeting seemed to narrow the distance between those choices. Every discussion pushed them closer toward a conclusion they once would have considered unimaginable. Eventually, the uncertainty began giving way to clarity. Not suddenly, not dramatically. The decision formed gradually, shaped by months of observation, reflection, and difficult conversations. By the end of those private discussions, something fundamental had shifted. The Loyalists understood that remaining where they were no longer aligned with what they believed the institution needed. A choice had been made, even if only a handful of people knew it at the time. What followed was not a dramatic public announcement, but a quiet move whose impact would ripple through every corner of the palace. At first, The signs were subtle. Meetings changed, conversations grew shorter, familiar support seemed less certain. Then the reality became impossible to ignore. The decision had been made quietly, but its consequences could not remain hidden forever. In an institution where routines are carefully observed and relationships are studied as closely as official announcements, even the smallest shift can trigger a wave of speculation. What began as a faint feeling that something was different soon developed into a growing certainty among those closest to palace operations. The Loyalist who had once stood firmly beside Camilla no longer seemed to occupy the same position. There was no public disagreement, no dramatic confrontation. Yet the distance was becoming increasingly difficult to deny. Reports suggested that Camilla herself was among the first to notice the change. For years, she had relied upon a trusted circle of supporters who provided consistency during both calm and turbulent periods. Their loyalty offered reassurance in a world where alliances can shift without warning. That was why the subtle alterations reportedly felt so significant. Conversations that once carried confidence now appeared more restrained. Discussions that had previously unfolded naturally seemed shorter and more cautious. The dependable sense of certainty that had defined the relationship for years was beginning to fade. At first, it may have seemed temporary. Palace figures often face changing schedules, competing responsibilities, and periods of intense pressure. But as time passed, the pattern reportedly became impossible to dismiss. The Loyalist was no longer present in the same way. Their priorities appeared different. Their attention seemed increasingly focused elsewhere. Those observing from nearby positions began noticing the same thing. The connection that had once appeared unshakable was showing visible signs of strain. Inside palace circles, these developments quickly became a subject of intense discussion. Staff members who had spent years watching royal dynamics unfold recognized that something unusual was happening. Relationships within the institution are built over decades and rarely change without reason. When such a significant alliance begins weakening, people pay attention. Quiet conversations started taking place in offices, corridors, and private gatherings. Individuals compared observations. They shared concerns. Gradually, a picture began to emerge that few would have believed possible only months earlier. The growing distance between the two figures soon became one of the worst-kept secrets within royal circles. Courtiers reportedly began discussing the possibility of a major internal realignment. What if this was not simply one relationship changing? What if it represented something much larger? The monarchy was already navigating a period of transition. William's influence continued expanding. Senior advisors increasingly viewed him as the future center of stability. Against that backdrop, the Loyalists' shift appeared less like an isolated event and more like evidence of a broader transformation taking place beneath the surface. For Camilla, the implications were unsettling. Influence within royal institutions is not measured solely by titles or public recognition. It is sustained through networks of trust, confidence, and dependable relationships. Every supporter matters. Every ally contributes to stability. Losing one trusted figure might not appear devastating from the outside, but insiders understood the deeper significance. If one of her most reliable defenders could reconsider their position, others might begin asking difficult questions of their own. That possibility created a growing sense of uncertainty. Palace observers reportedly wondered whether additional shifts were already underway. Were others privately reevaluating old loyalties? Were more conversations taking place behind closed doors? Had the Loyalist simply been the first person willing to act on conclusions that others were quietly reaching themselves? The questions multiplied with every passing week, fueling speculation that the institution was entering a new phase of internal change. What made the situation especially powerful was not merely the loss of support itself, but what that loss symbolized. It represented the weakening of assumptions that had once seemed permanent. It suggested that long-standing alliances were no longer guaranteed. Most importantly, it demonstrated that William's growing influence was beginning to reshape the landscape in ways that could not be ignored. The ripple effects extended far beyond two individuals. They touched everyone connected to the institution's future. But the departure of one loyal supporter was significant for another reason. It sent a message to everyone else watching from the sidelines. News of the defection spread quietly but rapidly, moving through corridors, offices, and drawing rooms with remarkable speed. Suddenly, Every alliance inside the palace was being re-evaluated. What had started as a private decision was now becoming one of the most closely watched developments inside royal circles. The Loyalists' departure from Camilla's camp was not announced publicly, yet it traveled through the institution with extraordinary speed. Within days, people who had previously dismissed the rumors were treating them as a serious indication that something fundamental was changing. The reaction was immediate. Not because one individual had changed position, but because everyone understood what that decision might represent. If a trusted ally could make such a dramatic shift, then no relationship inside the palace seemed entirely immune from reconsideration. Among senior figures, the news reportedly triggered a period of intense reflection. Individuals, who had spent years operating within familiar alliances, suddenly found themselves reassessing old assumptions. Relationships that once appeared permanent were being examined through a new lens. Trusted partnerships were scrutinized. Long-established loyalties were quietly re-evaluated. The monarchy had entered a period of transition, and transitions have a way of forcing people to think differently about where they belong. For many inside the institution, the Loyalist decision served as a reminder that the future was arriving faster than expected. At the center of countless conversations was Prince William. For years, observers had discussed his eventual role as king, but now attention was shifting toward a different question. What kind of leadership team was forming around him? The growing network of advisors, supporters, and trusted figures surrounding William became a major topic of speculation. Palace insiders reportedly began discussing who might play influential roles in the years ahead. Every new alliance seemed important. Every emerging relationship appeared significant. The defection only intensified that curiosity because it suggested that respected figures were already positioning themselves around the future rather than the present. Supporters of William's vision reportedly viewed the development as a powerful validation of their confidence. They believed the institution needed stability, unity, and long-term planning. To them, the Loyalist decision appeared to confirm what they had been saying for years. William's influence was no longer merely growing. It was becoming a gravitational force within the monarchy, attracting individuals who believed his leadership represented the clearest path forward. That perception strengthened morale among those already aligned with his outlook and encouraged others to pay closer attention. Meanwhile, palace staff interpreted the situation through a different but equally important perspective. Many saw it as evidence that the institution itself was evolving. The monarchy had always adapted to changing circumstances, but these developments felt especially significant because they involved people rather than policies. Staff members who observed the shift reportedly viewed it as a sign that a new era was gradually taking shape. The future was no longer a distant concept discussed in strategic meetings. It was beginning to influence decisions in real time. Yet with that realization came growing uncertainty. The Loyalists had made their choice, but countless others had not. Questions emerged throughout royal circles. Who might be next to reconsider their position? Were other supporters quietly reaching similar conclusions? Had private conversations already begun among figures who once seemed firmly committed to existing alliances? No one knew the answers, and that uncertainty created an atmosphere filled with tension. Every interaction seemed open to interpretation. Every meeting sparked speculation. Every shift in behavior attracted attention. For Camilla's remaining supporters, the situation was particularly unsettling. The departure had exposed vulnerabilities that many preferred not to acknowledge. Confidence gave way to concern. Assumptions gave way to questions. The sense of security that once surrounded established alliances appeared weaker than before. Even those who remained loyal could not entirely ignore the possibility that additional changes might follow. As speculation intensified, one reality became impossible to escape. The Loyalists' decision had altered the conversation inside the palace. It had shifted attention away from the past and toward the future. More importantly, it had focused that attention on a single figure whose influence seemed stronger than ever. The institution was changing, and many believed they knew exactly who was shaping that transformation. As the dust settled, attention turned toward the man at the center of it all, and what this victory revealed about his future. Power inside a monarchy is rarely measured by titles alone. It is measured by trust, influence, and the willingness of others to stand beside you when difficult decisions must be made. As conversations continued spreading throughout royal circles, attention increasingly focused on what the Loyalists' decision meant for Prince William himself. The departure had already created uncertainty among some and concern among others, but its greatest impact may have been the way it strengthened William's standing inside the institution. For years, observers had watched him prepare for future responsibilities, gradually building relationships and earning confidence across different parts of the royal household. Now, many believed they were witnessing the results of those efforts. The defection was not simply a personal choice. It was being interpreted as a powerful endorsement of William's growing influence. The significance of that perception cannot be overstated. Royal institutions are built upon continuity, confidence, and carefully maintained trust. Every major figure relies upon networks of support that extend far beyond public appearances and official duties. When a respected insider chooses to align themselves with a particular vision of the future, people notice. When that insider was once closely connected to another powerful figure, the impact becomes even greater. According to palace observers, the Loyalist's decision dramatically increased William's credibility among individuals who had previously remained cautious about choosing sides. For many advisors, the development appeared to confirm what they had already begun to suspect. William was no longer merely preparing for a future role. He was actively shaping the environment that would eventually define his leadership. Reports suggested that more senior figures were becoming increasingly comfortable aligning themselves with his long-term priorities. They saw consistency in his approach. They saw careful planning rather than impulsive decision-making. Most importantly, they saw a figure capable of guiding the institution through periods of uncertainty without creating additional instability. That perception became one of William's greatest strengths. At a time when questions surrounded the future direction of the monarchy, stability carried enormous value. Individuals inside the institution reportedly wanted reassurance that the next chapter would be guided by clear leadership and steady judgment. The Loyalist's decision reinforced that sense of confidence. It suggested that respected figures were not simply observing William's rise, they were actively choosing to support it. As confidence in William continued growing, so too did his network of supporters. Some alliances developed gradually through years of collaboration. Others appeared to strengthen in response to recent events. Regardless of how they formed, the result was becoming increasingly clear. More people seemed willing to invest their trust in William's vision of the future. The momentum surrounding him was no longer confined to a small group of advisors. It was spreading across different levels of the institution, creating the impression of a leader whose influence extended well beyond his formal position. For the Loyalist, this outcome carried profound significance. Their decision had been shaped by difficult questions about responsibility, loyalty, and the future of the monarchy. Yet once that choice became known, it acquired a meaning that extended far beyond personal circumstances. It became symbolic. To many observers, it represented validation of William's authority. Not authority granted by title alone, but authority earned through relationships, trust, and the confidence of those who understood the institution from the inside. Royal commentators and palace insiders reportedly viewed the moment as a turning point, not necessarily because it transformed the monarchy overnight, but because it revealed how much had already changed. The future that once seemed distant was now influencing present-day decisions. The balance of power that once appeared fixed was evolving, and the people closest to the institution were responding accordingly. The Loyalist's decision became a symbol of that transformation, a sign that the monarchy was gradually orienting itself around the leadership expected to define the years ahead. Yet beneath all the discussion about influence, alliances, and authority, there remained an even larger question. The real significance of this moment was not confined to a single relationship or a single decision. It pointed towards something much bigger, something that would shape the institution long after the headlines faded and the rumors subsided. Yet, the most important consequence was not what happened in the present, it was what this moment suggested about the future of the monarchy itself. Sometimes the most important royal battles are not fought in public. They unfold quietly, through conversations, decisions, and shifting loyalties that gradually reshape the institution from within. Looking back on everything that had unfolded, it became clear that the Loyalists' decision represented far more than a single change of allegiance. It was not simply a story about one trusted insider stepping away from a long-standing relationship. It was a story about a monarchy standing at the edge of transformation. The decision exposed tensions that had been building quietly for years, revealed shifting priorities within the institution, and highlighted a reality that many inside royal circles had already begun to recognize. The future was arriving, and it was changing the behavior of everyone connected to it. For Prince William, the moment carried enormous significance. Throughout this unfolding drama, he had remained at the center of a growing movement towards stability, continuity, and preparation for the years ahead. What made his rise remarkable was not the authority attached to his position, but the confidence he had earned from those around him. The Loyalist's decision seemed to confirm that confidence in a way no official statement ever could. It suggested that respected figures inside the institution were increasingly viewing William not simply as the future king, but as the person already shaping the future direction of the monarchy itself. That perception may prove to be one of the most important developments of all. Institutions survive because people believe in their ability to adapt while preserving their core purpose. According to royal observers, William has increasingly come to represent that balance. He embodies continuity, yet he is also associated with change. He respects tradition, yet he understands the pressures of a modern era. As more figures align themselves with that vision, his influence appears likely to grow even stronger. The Loyalist's choice did not create that reality, but it certainly illuminated it. For Camilla, however, the picture appears far less certain. Reports suggest that questions continue circulating about where she stands within an evolving power structure. While she remains an important figure within the monarchy, the departure of such a trusted supporter has reportedly altered perceptions in meaningful ways. Confidence that once seemed unquestioned now faces greater scrutiny. Assumptions that once appeared secure now face challenges. In royal institutions, perception can be as powerful as reality, and many insiders believe perceptions are changing faster than ever. What makes this story especially fascinating is that it appears to symbolize something much larger than a disagreement between individuals. It reflects a broader transfer of influence taking place within the palace. Every era of monarchy experiences moments when established structures begin giving way to new ones. Sometimes those moments arrive dramatically. Other times they emerge gradually through a series of decisions that only reveal their true significance when viewed together. Many observers believe this is one of those moments. Even now, there remains a sense that the story is not finished. If anything, it may only be beginning. Palace insiders continue speculating about what comes next. Will additional figures reconsider their positions? Will new alliances emerge as the institution continues evolving? Are there other conversations taking place behind closed doors that have yet to become known? The uncertainty surrounding those questions has become one of the defining features of this chapter in royal history. What is clear is that the palace has entered a new phase. The old assumptions no longer feel as permanent as they once did. Relationships are being reassessed. Priorities are shifting. The future is influencing the present in increasingly visible ways. Through all of it, one lesson continues to stand out. The most powerful transformations rarely begin with public announcements. They begin quietly, through decisions made by individuals who recognize that change is no longer coming. It has already arrived. And if one of Camilla's most trusted defenders could choose a different path, many are now wondering who might be next to cross the line and whether this was merely the first move in a much larger royal transformation. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.